Janet Bryant here, your trend-setting street reporter extraordinaire. Welcome to my class project. Through Zoom and FaceTime, I'm doing a feature today on a true modern Wonder Woman, my personal hero. Her name is Kizzmekia Corbett, or Kizzy to those who know her. Why is she my hero? Because she helped develop the vaccine to knock out COVID-19, that's why. We want to honor her now while the pandemic is still raging and the vaccine is saving the day. Also, even though I'm not a scientist, I have a prediction regarding Kizzy, and it will be interesting to see what she thinks of my future forecast for her. We'll be talking to the people who raised her, mentored her, and worked with her. Here is Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Our vaccine was actually developed in my institute's research center by a team of scientists led by Dr. Barney Graham and his colleague, Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett. Now, Kizzy is an African-American scientist who is right at the forefront of the development of the vaccine. So the first thing you might want to say to our skeptical brothers and sisters is that the vaccine you're going to be taking was developed by an African-American woman. And that is just a fact.
Kizzy was born in Hurdle Mills, North Carolina, a town of about 4,000 people just 30 minutes south of the Virginia border. As a student, she was selected to participate in Project Seed, a program for gifted minority students that allowed her to study chemistry in labs at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She eventually landed a full ride to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Unlike me, Kizzy spent her summers in laboratories and earned a summer internship at the National Institutes of Health, the very place where she would be instrumental in developing a vaccine for the coronavirus. Before we meet Kizzy, I wanted to give you a little background from her family. First, let's start with her mother, Rhonda Brooks.
Everyone thinks their baby is special, especially their first baby. Well, Kizzy was my first, and she was always like a little detective. My sweet little opinionated detective. I remember when Kizzy's third grade teacher, a black woman, told me and my husband, Kizzy's stepfather, that we should do everything possible to make sure our daughter was put on the most demanding academic track, something their district rarely considered for black children, and that we should really push for this. Well, eventually, our family moved about 20 minutes south to Hillsboro. We raised our math whiz daughter, along with her 6 other birth, step, and foster siblings.
And here is her sister, Tamika.
I'm actually your cousin, but I was adopted into the family, and I'm a year younger than Kiz. Kiz was always the one with book smarts. She took advanced reading and math classes at Oakland Elementary. She was always a major competitor, be it in Girl Scouts or at a science fair. She made sure her project was the one that won. She's always been known for her smartness. You know, Kiz took every AP course she could get her hands on. She was top of her class in high school. Naturally, she was in a homecoming court and was constantly texting her friends and raving about the latest R&B hits.
And this is Dr. Barney Graham. He supervised her when she was a summer intern during high school, which was a very big deal, don't you know?
I met Kizzy 12 years ago when she was an undergraduate doing summer work for NIH's Vaccine Research Center. And I asked her, what does she ultimately want to do with her life? And she said, I want your job. From the very beginning, she was really pretty bold in her aspirations. And if I could recall correctly, I was just glad to hear help was coming. Kiz was clear that her route included a doctorate and ideally working on rapid vaccine development, which was symphonic area to my ears. Rapid vaccine development, particularly novel pathogens with the potential to cause pandemics, but not corporate profit. It almost always requires singular focus and a scientist who's willing to sacrifice.
Now this is Dr. Russell, a doctorate candidate at UNC who hired Kiz as his lab assistant.
My first impression was that Kizzy was hilarious, precocious, and had a spark like I'd never witnessed. Her intellect and capacity to learn were far above other students her age. For her to be in a lab during the summer and being enthusiastic about it, that set her apart from her peers right there. For her to come and understand what was going on, that set the bar even higher. I saw her as a little sister and needed to look out for her and act as her mentor. I knew she was going to do something great because of her demeanor and work ethic.
And now here's the Kiz Wonder herself, Kizzmekia. Is there someone you feel really helped you significantly?
Hi, Janet. Thanks for doing this. I'm kind of embarrassed about all this attention, but I have a few things I'd like to say. As far as helping me, I think without Dr. Russell's mentorship, I wouldn't have gotten here. I was a high school student and saw this guy from Alabama working in a big fancy laboratory. He talked like me and could relate to me in so many ways. He let me help with experiments, and I fell in LOVE with science, majorly.
When it was time for college, you had multiple offers, not surprisingly, including one from a college known as Southern Party School, and another from University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
I was like, do I go for the fun, or do I go for the funds?
You were accepted to the Meyerhoff Scholars Program and offered a full scholarship, right?
Yes. I chose Meyerhoff because of the money, the network, and the program. Critical thought is just how I roll.
And here is Dr. Ralph Barrick, a professor in the departments of epidemiology, microbiology, and immunology at the University of North Carolina.
Right from the start, I saw this really outstanding, hard-working scientist. Fate has put her in a position to make a huge difference in human health. It's a good choice, and it's lucky for all of us. You know, I have spent 35 years of my life studying coronaviruses and did the evaluation of Kizzmekia's doctoral research on the dengue fever. She was drawn to dengue for two reasons. One, the suffering that the disease causes, and the complexity of it making vaccine development extremely challenging. Well, you know, in retrospect, it was solid preparation for COVID-19.
So the stage was set for Kizzy to take on this huge project. Kiz, what is it like to be in the eye of the hurricane, so to speak?
Ooh, the work itself is exhilarating and hard. It also demands 7-day work weeks, getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep each night. Information is constantly arriving at all hours. Decisions need to be made. There were so many calls and emails, requests for data, for samples, for tests that measure how well the virus has been blocked. I needed someone just to read my email. I was in meetings or in conference calls several times every day. Some scientists from around the world would double-check my work or ideas with Dr. Graham or direct questions to him.
I always made it perfectly clear that Kizzy was the scientific lead and ultimate expert.
I have several coping strategies, but fortunately, I have a boss who believes in me. So I'm not afraid to ask questions, seek directions, or try new approaches.
She's so organized, she's known as the spreadsheet queen. She plots out everything from clinical trials to her best friend's children's birthdays.
The reason I started to work in coronavirus was not to ever develop a vaccine, but to really have a strong understanding in vaccine immune responses so that we could potentially develop one. In early January 2020, with the knowledge that there was a respiratory outbreak in the Wuhan district of China, Barney started sending emails essentially telling me and the team to buckle up because we were about to embark on a wild ride. I felt like it was necessary to be seen and not be a hidden figure, so to speak. It was important to do that because the level of visibility that it would show to younger scientists and also to people of color who've often worked behind the scenes and essentially done all the work unnoticed.
Dr. Russell is now a chemistry professor and department chair at Tuskegee University.
Seeing her on CNN or standing next to the president, that I didn't see coming. It's amazing that this girl from rural North Carolina ended up in the middle of an international pandemic as a person who could potentially stop the crisis. what's most impressive about that rise is the fact that she has stayed true to herself. That she's just a regular person who happens to be doing this incredible work. And yet she has a little bit of a star quality. Scientist isn't some cartoon character running around in a lab coat. My kids and other young people look at Kizzy on TV and know they can go to college and grad school and become scientists. And they'll see that is possible, that this is doable.
Dr. Ralph Barrick is now part of Kizzy's vaccine development team, helping her conduct critical experiments.
Kiz is an expert on the front lines of the global race for the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine, and someone who will go down in history as one of the key players in developing the science that could end this pandemic.
Dr. Andrew Ward is a professor at Scripps Research who specializes in structure-based vaccine design and atomic-level modeling. He's part of Kizzy's team.
She's definitely not your average pocket protector scientist. There's constant pressure in a situation like this where the speed at which we've gone to clinical trials is almost unprecedented. And I think there's a lot of realism on the team that this is a shot. Maybe not even our best shot, but a good shot, given the pressing need. And Kizzy, to me, epitomizes that. She's putting in long, long hours doing critical, potentially world-altering work at what is naturally a pretty high-pressure time in her career. And all this in an incredibly focused way.
Dr. Graham, what is it about Kizzy that makes her stand out among the other scientists you've worked with?
Kizzy is a young black woman in a sea of older white men in suits and lab coats. She's making appearances on national TV as a scientific expert, briefing the White House on potential COVID-19 vaccines, and working on the front lines to find a way to stop this pandemic. I want her to have a seat at that table for all the reasons we are witnessing through the pandemic and the protesting. Not just because she's competent, but she represents a generation of young people and African American scientists who need a seat at that table.
So she's been able to hold on to her regular self. Be real.
Yes, I've always liked Kizzmekia. She was undaunted. It's one of those traits in a scientist that you really can't teach. She has a resiliency that if you have a problem, you figure it out. If you have a setback, you try it again. And you take a different direction. And outside of the lab, Kiz is just a soft, kind-hearted person who likes to take care of people, and she celebrates everything. Whether it's making sure there are cupcakes for birthdays or wrapping gifts for baby showers, she makes sure people are noticed. That generosity and care is also focused on her family, most of whom still live in North Carolina.
Tamika, is it true that through all of this, Kizzy has remained just plain old Kizzy?
Yes, my daughters, Kizzy's nieces, adore her. And while they can't see each other in person right now, they FaceTime before Kiz heads into the lab and text loving photos that interrupt data reviews.
My Kizzmekia is the kind of aunt that shows up to everything and spoils her nieces and nephews. She'll say yes to a fruit roll-up for breakfast and secretly send a new iPod when Mom says no, drive down for roller skating, birthday parties, and sit in the stands for a softball tournament, even if it means catching a last-minute bus. At Christmas, Kiz makes sure every kid has at least one gift. And she's just as competitive during those silly family games as she has been in her academic pursuits.
Kizzy is also an inspiration to her nieces. They are overjoyed every time they see her on TV. Her being in the spotlight, I have to tell you that as a black single mom with 2 kids, and my sister being one of the top people being talked about, it's something we don't want to stop. It's powerful to us. One of my girls is interested in engineering at a STEM elementary school and goes to STEM camp every summer. My other daughter is a tomboy who is free-spirited and full of life and not afraid, which all comes from her Aunt Kizzy. She so inspires them to be the best thing they can be.
I am so proud of my Kizzy. She engages fiercely with any issue before her, and yet she makes time to check in with her 3 nieces and nephews almost every day. She's not afraid to lean on family and friends, especially her two grandmothers, for whom Jesus is like a BFF. My Kizzy is that rare bird, a scientist who loves Jesus. She worries about how seriously people at church take social distancing recommendations.
Kizzy, how does it feel to be at the forefront of this vaccination wave with the hope of saving so many lives? And how does it feel to be the only woman?
It feels normal to me somehow. But I wonder whether my male colleagues are ever asked how they feel to be in the room with me. You and all the other women have to start thinking that it's an honor for those men to be working with us. Society makes you feel like you're here because someone important placed you here, and now you owe them something. Or the thinking is, you're here, so you should just be grateful. And I am. But this is why women don't ask for raises or negotiate and say they're happy to have a job. That needs to change.
So we need to infuse self-confidence into our beings.
If it means we need to drink ego tea, then we should definitely take a healthy sip.
Did you ever, in your wildest imagination, think you'd be where you are today?
No. We predicted pandemics, but the extent to which this one is happening is mind-blowing. It's surreal to be in the middle of it and watching it all play out. I came to research because I wanted to be able to watch our science translate into something that was real and useful and helpful to people. Having one piece of what could possibly be a solution to this pandemic and ending this pandemic. There's so much pressure. I just hope that all the work we're doing gives people a little bit of hope.
What's down the road for you?
I always wanted to be my own boss, and I still want that job as a principal investigator. I'm still a detective at heart. My ideal job would be to be the scientist running a lab where everyone works towards scientific like-minded goals, answering research questions and conducting experiments that I devise.
Well, Kizzmekia, you are my hero, my inspiration. I do not want your specific job, but you make me want to find something that fulfills me and helps others. I have a prediction for you. I fully predict a Nobel Peace Prize in your future. Have you thought about that?
Wow. I hadn't actually considered that.
You're going to win, so start thinking about your speech.
I do not like writing speeches. I'd rather spend that time discovering something new. If it happens, and it will be nice, I'll just accept the award and have my favorite rappers do the acceptance portion. Young Jeezy and DaBaby. That would be cool. Thank you, Janet. You should give some thought to being a broadcast journalist. I could introduce you to some people. Stay safe in the meantime.
Thank you, Kizzy, for your inspiration and dedication. You are the definition of awesome. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all my family and friends for helping me put together this video project honoring Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett. This is Janet Bryant, signing off. Thank you for watching.